Three superheroes with Justice League aspirations plot to use a magic helmet to summon and defeat a great evil, but they summon Greek god Atlas instead, who they kill in an ensuing fight. This causes the sky to fall. Caught in the crossfire is a boy, accidentally killed by the heroes. The boy's friends vow revenge on the heroes. A conglomerate of child billionaires hire an assassin to protect them from a manhunter who blames them for the falling sky. They also hire a down-on-his-luck reporter who moonlights as a crazed superhero. The reporter is tasked with stoking fear of a faceless terrorist group who are blamed for almost every tragedy and illness in America. A group of magically mutated kids struggle to return their former lives. A cop tries to assemble the pieces of this wild story, trying to hold on to her hope for a happy ending. And all of this is set into motion by a high-stakes children's game. Tom King's Danger Street is a 12-issue series that can be compared to Pulp Fiction or Fargo. Seemingly unconnected characters whose importance in each other's lives arrives unexpectedly. But why are these existing DC characters interacting at all? And for what purpose? At least how I see it, it's a tale of the death of the Silver Age of comics, and of the American dream. It's a series with a ton of plot points and twists and turns, so I'd highly recommend reading the full series before watching this review. Comic book history is typically divided into ages that try to encompass styles and attitudes prevalent in superhero comics. The Golden Age began in 1938 with the debut of Superman in Action Comics #1. This era was full of simple crime-busting stories, square-jawed men beating up gangsters and freaks. It was very much a Wild West for superheroes. Later would come the Silver Age in about 1956 with the introduction of Barry Allen's Flash. This era saw a shift towards sci-fi. Superheroes were softened, mainly due to public pressure and scaremongering that stories of violence and horror would corrupt the youth. Batman went from Dark Knight to Caped Crusader, often working in the daytime with a friendly smile. Superman became a wholesome paragon of morality in the face of American patriotism. And then in 1970 would come the controversial Bronze Age. In this era, superheroes would move past the shackles of pure, squeaky clean morality tales. As readers matured, so did the comics they grew up with. This brought us some more serious and darker tales like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing and The Night Gwen Stacy Died. We weren't quite in the infamous Dark Ages of the death of Superman and Rob Liefeld hypermasculinity, but we were on the path. In a way, these eras reflected the cultural consciousness of America. A golden age of economic prosperity following a Great Depression. A silver age of patriotism and social conformity where America was the hero of World War II. Then would come a Bronze Age, where that heroic static would come into question. The morality of our society scrutinized, racial tensions burned through the country, and a decline of prosperity would begin. This is the era that Danger Street lives in, with a story of chaos and a connected universe of disparate characters whose lives intersect through sheer chance. And just like the Bronze Age, Danger Street speaks on the dying truth of the American dream. The entire series is narrated by the helmet of Dr. Fate as a classical fairy tale of knights, kings, and monsters. What stands out is who gets which labels. Our three heroes, Starman, Warlord, and Metamorpho, get the label of princes, not heroes or knights as you might think. The reason may be that these heroes, in their selfish goal to summon and defeat the evil new god Darkseid for fame, kill an entirely different god and start the death of the universe. And in the crossfire, they kill Goodlooks, a boy in an adolescent gang called the Dingbats of Danger Street. In a twist of fate, these troublemaking kids are the innocents, stumbling into this story through happenstance and becoming victims of superheroes, who they should be looking up to as role models and protectors. This inversion of expectations is key to Danger Street. Jack Ryder is a journalist and talk show host whose alter ego is the violent vigilante, the Creeper. In this story, he's an ogre, creature explicitly stated to be neither good nor bad, but each is subject to their own whims. Another superhero with an unexpected title. Jack lands a lucrative career as a talking head for a major broadcaster. Specifically, his stories are written to focus on a group of terrorists called the Outsiders. He speaks on the rot infiltrating America, destroying their way of life, the failure of elites, which includes superheroes, in making the world a better, safer, more prosperous place. There's an easy comparison to people like Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones.
Illegal immigration is not a burden, it's a gift, Dumbo!
And there is some merit to this rhetoric in the modern day. The world of company-owned superheroes is cyclical. and almost always reverts to status quo. Despite years of service, world's greatest detective Batman has hardly made meaningful change to Gotham. Batman, in fact, makes an appearance to threaten Jack into ceasing his fear-mongering of the outsiders, inspiring Jack's rant against these heroes. In our world, it's a poorly held secret that America is an oligarchy, a system where a minority of people have a majority of the power and privilege. In our capitalist system, that means those with money, CEOs, shareholders, nepo babies, and the like. The promise of free market economics was touted to create an explosion of prosperity through unrestricted production and a trickling down effect to lower costs for consumers. This has been the leading economic thought of America for decades. But since the major influx of this system, kickstarted by President Nixon and status quo'd by President Reagan, America has succeeded in achieving booming profits, yet the majority of the country lives paycheck to paycheck, and wealth disparity increases year over year. Our elected officials are wildly unpopular. Trust in our government is bottoming out due to the increasing melding of profit and politics. While we do elect our rulers, it's the ones that pay them that are truly in charge. However, men like Jack Ryder, Tucker Carlson, and Alex Jones don't blame the system that led us to these spoiled elites and failing superheroes able to maintain their positions of power and abuse without consequence. No, it's the fault of the outsiders. And just who are these outsiders? It could be anyone. The creeper finds a self-proclaimed patriot beating a brown man in an alley, claiming that he has no choice, that the man's kind are ruining America. The man even calls Creeper a communist for defending the victim. Communism always tends to be a catch-all term for anything bad in America. The rhetoric here is that America is a shining, intrinsic good being invaded, infected by outside forces to corrupt their way of life. And based on this crazed assaulter, America is white, capitalist, and exclusive. The irony, of course, is that, once again in Danger Street, a superhero fails its citizens, spewing lies and fear of an imagined enemy, inspiring hate crimes. Despite being a well-paid massive media figure and a legitimate superhero, Jack doesn't see himself as an elite, as someone running the show like Superman, whose name is brought up repeatedly throughout the series. This perceived position of weakness drives Jack to take money and do the bidding of a group of elites. This group of elites is known as the Green Team. The Green Team are a group of 4 child billionaire business moguls operating in shipping, oil, and media production. De facto leader of the group, Commodore, hires Jack Ryder specifically to spread fear of the outsiders. They're implied to be enemies of the Green Team in some way. Commodore is quite paranoid, believing almost every ill fortune to come his way is a plot by them. If we paste this back onto the assaulter in the alley, the Green Team are the supposed patriots, the capitalists, the ones that make money, that are successful. And the brown man being beaten by this man is the outsiders, someone that they can blame for all their ills and problems, foreigners, communists, etc. These two groups came to be through a children's game. In a flashback, a group of school friends play a game of jumping from grassy growth in pavement cracks. If you land elsewhere or fall, you lose. A more complex game of the floor is lava. This game was played each day, ending in a winner team and a loser team. But this all changes with the arrival of a mysterious stranger, offering a gamble. The winners get their wish come true, the losers, a nightmare. The winners of this game are, of course, the Green Team, named for those who can navigate the grass patches successfully. They won riches beyond their imaginations. The losers would be mutated into abominations, forced into exile by a fearful society. This group of losers is called the Outsiders. Understanding Danger Street means understanding the relationship between the Green Team and the Outsiders. In fitting with Danger Street's critique of a capitalist society, the Green Team are labeled by the Helmet of Fate as monsters, and for good reason. To call them bratty would be an undersell. They're vindictive, manipulative, abusive, and two-faced. The worst of them is Commodore, who sees himself as a king ruling over his subjects, willing to throw his fellow teammates under the bus for his own egotistical gains and self-preservation. Commodore even trades the Helmet of Fate for Metamorpho's diamond arm, tossing away the object that gave him his life like a trinket and kickstarting the fall of the sky. The team is a clear allusion to the children of the rich and wealthy who inherit their empires and positions of authority. They luck into being born into fortunes, and as such, never develop the social skills or morality a normal person without extreme power would need to navigate society. The outsiders are now outcast, divorced from their family, friends, and society. Smeared as terrorists by their former friends, paranoid they'll come to steal the prize they've won. In reality, they're just kids who lost a game, who innocently made a deal with the Lord of Chaos, incapable of understanding the ramifications of such things. If anyone else had fallen during the game, their fates could be reversed. It was all dumb luck. Mary of the Outsiders tearfully cries, "It's not fair." And these are the major themes of Danger Street. Fate, luck, and chaos are the guiding forces in the world. People try to make order out of this, and sometimes the order that comes about is cruel and unfair. The glorious, infallible status quo of the Silver Age, a time of good and evil and fairness, of simple things, was always a lie. The validity of these things are combated by the two knights of our tale. Manhunter, tasked with slaying those prophesied to make the sky fall, meaning the green team, and succeeding in slaying half the team. Codename Assassin is hired to defend the team. The knights clash swords and words in a philosophical battle of skill, probability, luck, and fate. Eventually, each succumb to each other as equals, showing chaos and order in a stalemate. And trying to make sense of all this chaos is Lisa Warner, who begrudgingly takes on the moniker the dingbats of Danger Street give her, Lady Cop. As a teen, Lisa experienced a supervillain slasher attack. Hiding under a bed, she called out for Superman, and he never came. As Lady Cop investigates the death of Good Looks, she deals with constant disrespect and hardship. From a malfunctioning printer, to being ignored by the Green Team, to having to shoot two superheroes in self-defense, to having everyone around her saying that she's in over her head, that she should call Superman instead. Almost every issue, Superman is mentioned, but never actually appears. Superman has long stood as a symbol for America, or at least the America that America saw itself as during the post-World War II era. But that era is gone. That dream is dead, and Superman is not coming to help. Lisa Warner realized this under that bed so many years ago. Amongst a fantastical cast of superheroes, gods, assassins, and obnoxious kids, Lady Cop is just a cop. One who is overworked and frankly tired of it all. Yet in the end, it's her hope for a better tomorrow that pieces are cast together, retrieving the helmet of fate to give everyone a happy ending. The Outsiders' old forms are restored, our superheroes survive, Good Looks is resurrected, and the sky never falls. All except for the Commodore, who ends up broken in juvie, but frankly he deserves it. And that's our tale. At the end of reading Danger Street, I had to ask, once again, why does this exist? How did this random assortment of characters end up together? Well, it all starts when writer Tom King received the repackaged hardcover of First Issue Special. First Issue Special was a short-lived anthology series that came into being after the similar DC Showcase ended. The series was conceived by DC editor Carmine Infantino to have an entire series of #1 issues, since #1 issues always sold the best. Here, legendary writers like Jack Kirby and Walt Simonson had a chance to throw their wildest ideas at the wall and revive some old ones. These characters included Atlas, Dr. Fate, the Dingbats of Danger Street, Starman, and you get the picture. King read through this strange collection and wondered how all of these wildly different characters could possibly live in the same universe. What kind of story could bring them together? King took that idea as a dare. In an interview with Comics Beat, he states that one of his favorite plays is Sondheim's Into the Woods. This is a story of various fairy tale characters coming together for a grand adventure. The inspiration of this play on Danger Street is obvious. King weaves a fairy tale of these first issue special characters into a subversive superhero story of order and chaos. Lady Cop and the Dingbats, the princess and her lads, end up saving the universe from greedy monsters, arrogant princes, and a world of failing heroes. This happy ending is where the rebirth of the superheroes into the grounded Bronze Age happens, still holding on to that promise of everything working out from the Silver Age. It's also where we see the American dream reborn and reimagined. The successful aren't always deserving, heroes aren't always good, knights aren't always noble, and Superman doesn't always save the day. The Dark Knight Returns would come out in 1986, which is about 2 years after the supposed end of the Bronze Age. But I think it's a relevant story here, as it's clearly inspired by that Bronze Age. Stories where our friendly heroes experience darker tales of failure, death, and cruelty. This would be one of the main stories that kicked off the infamous Dark Ages of comics, an era that I believe took the wrong lesson for the Bronze Age. It wasn't just about darker stories, death, social commentary, and all manner of cruel things. It was about superheroes persevering, overcoming their tragedies, rather than dwelling in them. The Bronze Age still held out hope for a better tomorrow, and I think that Bronze Age attitude is alive today. Danger Street began publication in 2022 during DC's Dawn of DC era. Continuing to this day, this era seeks to reject the darkness of the Dark Ages and even the New 52 era of the early 2010s. Series like Titans, Speed Force, and the Justice Society set about restoring the family dynamics to superhero teams, bringing with it the classic attitudes of hope and wholesome. At this point, even the brooding Batman has a massive extended cast of friends and allies. The point of all of this is that though the promise of the American dream may have been built of naivete and, frankly, capitalist lies, there is hope that we can push past the status quo towards something new and better. We can honestly examine our faults and correct them. We don't have to wait for superheroes, billionaires, or anyone else to save the day. As multiple characters in the story say, we are Superman. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video and haven't read Danger Street yet, I highly suggest you do. My review is a bare bones experience that glosses over the finer points of the story, and those are worth reading even if you already know the ending. It's a quality experience. Check out some of my other comic video essays and subscribe to get my latest shorts and videos. Until next time, keep on reading.